Yep.
Garrett Oden, welcome to the Map It Forward podcast.
All right. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We met maybe a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it was not very long at all, but I've been a
No,
secret follower for a while.
I am. Thank you, first of all. And I'm starting to find out that that's the case in a lot of circumstances. We've got now about 13,000 unique listeners every month.
Wow.
And the interesting thing about the podcasting world, and I've been podcasting for 10 years, but it didn't really hit me until the last year, that the way that people engage in podcasts is that they don't engage. You know, how many podcasts
Mm-hmm.
do you listen to where you just listen to it and never really do anything with that brand on social media or on any other platforms? The way that you engage is by listening to the podcast. And so that becomes difficult when you're trying to justify to sponsors like, look, we have all
Yeah.
of these people engaging in what we do, but they don't really engage the way that you would want them to engage. So
Yeah, absolutely. Probably
now, go ahead.
almost every podcast I listen to is, I'm listening and I'm so happy listening, but probably most people have no idea. So I think
Yeah,
that's pretty standard.
yeah. But it's hard for marketers to get their heads around it because we'll talk to brands that approach us and say, what kind of marketing opportunities do you have for our brand on the podcast? And I go through the 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 spiel, and they're like, yeah, but you don't have that many people who kind of chime in on YouTube. We've got a bigger following on YouTube. And I'm like, that's great, that's awesome, but this is a different audience.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, it's difficult for, especially in an industry like ours where everyone does everything the same way that everybody else is doing everything. I'm the complete opposite of that. And everybody who I coach, all the businesses that we consult with, it's all about focusing on differentiating yourself and being fearless in it,
Mm-hmm.
which is a lot about what you talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been thinking a lot about differentiation this last year, especially. So
Yes.
I mean, it's been on my mind since I was a barista several years ago, but especially in this last year, so many physical stores are closed down. Everybody's online,
Mm.
and I saw the same people making the same, using the same cliches. Yeah, it just felt very much like we were all copying each other, and it made me kind of sad. So, yeah, I started
Yeah.
doing some writing about that because if we're all saying the same things, customers have no idea who to pick, or which company is going to really be a good fit with their values and what they want in a coffee company.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been rough to see it, but I think we're getting better slowly.
It is. It's heartbreaking every time I see somebody write something like, "We roast the best coffee in the world." Well, everybody can't be roasting the best coffee in the world. We buy the best coffee in the world. Well, everybody's buying the best coffee in the world.
Uh
And
huh.
really, bro, you are buying the best coffee in the world. Well, let's talk about that. It's just one of those spine cringing things of like, can we be a little more authentic in the way that we're messaging to our
Hmm.
customers? Give them a reason to give a fuck what buy what they're buying.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Starbucks says we serve the best coffee, and I think the language they use is we source the top 2%. That's language I used to see. So and I used to be the snob who's like, we're not even close to Starbucks. When I worked behind the
But you
bar.
are, bro,
So
because they're buying 100% specialty grade coffee, which occupies the top 5% of coffee buyers in the world.
yep, yeah, yeah, we've got some language problems.
Yeah.
Sorry
Now,
about that, and
now,
where our
tell,
expectations are.
what do you do? What do you do?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. I am a marketer, so I'm a freelance marketer. I work
Mm-hmm.
primarily with coffee, food, and food technology companies,
Mm-hmm.
um, primarily in the realms of copywriting and content strategy. So,
Mm-hmm.
content marketing and things like brand messaging, writing websites. I write a lot of emails. So if you want to make sales, or if you want to create some sort of emotional connection with
Hmm.
your people in written form, that's what I focus on and help companies do.
And I mean, I'm typically not somebody who likes marketing people. I like you. I like your writing. Um, I like the way that you approach the clarity of your writing. Clarity is important to me in both in my businesses and in what I teach to my clients, because once you have clarity about what you're doing, it's really easy to get your product to market and to understand why you're
Hmm.
doing this. And the reason I don't like marketers is because they're usually trying to trick people. You don't come
Yep.
across to me anyway as in your writing and in the exchanges that we've had as somebody who's trying to trick people through your marketing strategies.
Well, thanks. That's high praise. Yeah, I appreciate that.
No worries.
I didn't want to be a marketer when I got started, so
What
I
did you
wanted
want
to
to
just
do?
be a well. Let's see. I was a barista for 2 years. I managed the coffee shop, just a small independent coffee shop here in Texas, for 1 year. I wanted to stay within coffee education or
Mm,
coffee. I don't know. I wanted to help people enjoy coffee more fully. So yeah, I started off doing freelance writing around coffee for coffee publications, coffee companies who wanted to educate their customers. So yeah, I didn't start off wanting to be a marketer. Kind of fell into it uh, through just writing about coffee. And but yeah, I was very skeptical of. I am still very skeptical of marketers as well.
that's a great life skill to have.
I save a lot of money. I'll say that.
Yes. Oh, I'm just tired of it because uh, if you speak to marketers about marketing coffee, a lot of them recycle the same shit that's already out there. And that's not okay.
Hmm.
It's we have a branding problem in coffee. And the branding problem is that the marketers who have come in and branded coffee are calling instant coffee coffee. They're calling roasted coffee coffee, and they're calling $100 cup of pour over coffee.
Yep.
It's all coffee. And yet we get infuriated when our customers don't understand what it is we're selling them. And why should I be paying $5 for my latte? And you're saying actually you should be paying $8 for your latte if we're going to pay our people fairly and we're going to pay the producers fairly and I'm going to have enough to keep my business open. This is why marketers infuriate me. Wouldn't you know it? Now we have a fire alarm going off.
Fire alarm. Oh no.
Can you hear that?
Here. Yes, I can. It
Okay.
sounds like you need to get out of there.
No, not yet. It,
Okay.
it, this happened last week and there was actually a fire.
Oh
But the
man.
problem with these fancy buildings is that, like, you smoke anything. Like, you could have incense burning and the fire detectors go off. So, I will see what happens.
Okay.
And we will not be editing this out of the episode because we don't edit in this podcast. So I do apologize for anyone that's listening if you did hear that fire alarm. Um, but yeah, going back to what I was saying, we have a problem with branding of our industry. We don't do a very good job of helping people understand that our industry runs on 3% net profit for cafes. And people are still complaining my coffee's too expensive. So do you see that?
Oh yeah. I mean, I see it. I see when we raise prices when I worked in the shop, I mean, 25 cents for a drink, it was a big deal.
Yeah, people wouldn't come in.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who were not happy but were willing, and they got it. They understood.
Mm.
The cost increases to operate a shop and to pay people. The cost of living increases, but there's heavy resistance to paying. I mean, even myself, I went to a coffee shop in San Antonio, and their pour over was I think $18.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know exactly where the limit should be, but even myself, I had this gut reaction of like, what?
Yeah.
What are they
Oh, yeah.
doing? How could they
Does that come
even
with some
consider this?
gold?
Yeah. So, but our scale of what coffee should be priced is very skewed towards forcing producers to underwrite our low costs. So
Mm.
it's hard to even know. It's hard to have a balanced perspective because we're so used to the power dynamics benefiting people who purchase coffee. The end customer having super low cost, where while producers have can't even meet the cost of production. So yeah, I don't know exactly where it should be cost, but it should be definitely higher.
But I guess the real conversation that isn't being had between business owners and consumers is helping them understand that not all things that you call coffee are the same thing. And even when we are talking about the same categories of all the different varieties of coffee, even they have to be segmented into different types of coffee. So, everyone's calling themselves a specialty coffee shop. But what the fuck does that even mean anymore? So if we're confused, how are we expecting the consumer not to be confused? If we don't have clarity, there's that word again, how do
Mm-hmm.
we expect the consumer to have clarity about why they should be parting with their $5 with this business versus another business? Is this something that you are finding in your writing and your work for the customers that you do writing for? Is this something that you're helping them to discern more of? Because I sure hope that there's more people that want you to help them with this.
Yeah, so I worked for several years with a company, a subscription only company here in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Um, price was always the biggest hesitation, the biggest concern of customers. We have an exit survey when somebody cancels their subscription.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, probably 7 out of 10 times it's just priced too high, and it was priced somewhere around $18 to $20, including shipping, so not wildly expensive for good coffee. Pretty normal prices. So there's a small set of people who
Wait,
are
wait,
willing to
wait, wait.
pay.
Go back, go back, go back. I've
Oh,
run businesses in the US and I know how expensive it is to ship, even through USPS. At $18, you're paying for a 12-ounce bag, you're paying about $6.99 if you have an account with USPS. It's going to be more expensive through UPS. So if through UPS, it may be $1 more expensive. So if you're selling it at $18 and that includes shipping, you're selling a subscription at wholesale prices if it's
yep,
actual real specialty coffee.
yep, just about.
Am I am I
Yeah,
can am I getting that wrong?
no, you're right. There's basically no margin. But customers were more willing to pay 18. Let's see, it was somewhere between $18 and $20. It was kind of based on the coffee you were
Right.
getting, and whatever sale you subscribed under. Uh, but it made more sense to have almost no margin and more customers than to have.
So volume based.
So the volume we needed. Well, I was doing marketing. These decisions weren't necessarily mine, but
Yep.
my
No,
understanding
I
was it
get
made
it.
more sense to do the
Yep.
volume over uh, prioritize volume over margin for to a point at least.
Mm-hmm. But you
So yeah,
see why
very low
that's
margin.
broken, right?
Oh yeah, it's not enough.
And this our whole industry operates on this model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't, I keep thinking that at some point we're going to see how we're sabotaging our own future as an industry. Right? Like,
Yeah, have we seen it and just don't know what to do about it, or do we just not know?
That is a fabulous question. I think that the answer is both of those things. I think what's going on is that because the barrier to entry is so low in our industry, people learn as they go and they
Mm-hmm.
try to adapt by reacting to what they think success is supposed to be. And it'll get better, right? As I grow my business, I'll increase my prices once I have a loyal customer base. But because I'm learning as I go, what I'm not doing is trying to see the blind spots and figuring out what I don't know. So I'm giving ownership of my accounting over to my bookkeeper and my accountant, who are going to tell me at the end of the year if I'm making any money or not. And I expect that I'm not going to make any money in the first few years because that's what happens when you start a business. So I'm waiting till the third year to start questioning what a profit and loss statement is. And the third year, I still haven't made any money. And now I'm starting to realize how much money I really have lost. And by that time, the next new thing has come in, who are selling less than you because they're getting on board with the same business model as what I did. And now we're in a race to the bottom.
And everybody's asking each other on Facebook, hey, what's a normal price?
Exactly.
And nobody knows exactly what it should be. So it's we keep repeating the same low prices.
Right.
Yeah, I've seen it a lot.
Which must infuriate you as a writer about this stuff. No?
Yeah, what we're talking about specifically, it doesn't, it's frustrating to see, but I'm not in the weeds with looking at numbers every day. So it's, I don't know if it's quite as personal to me in that way, but it's definitely, I mean, it's absolutely the same sort of cycle of, you know, it's the same cycle when it comes to branding and marketing as well. So people repeating the same things over and over again. New people opening shops and starting to roast coffee. They come in and they don't quite see and understand how much sameness there is, and how hard it's going to be to stand out.
Mm-hmm.
So there's continually a fresh crop of new businesses who I think are maybe unaware of the struggle of making it work sustainably. And I see more of the marketing side, but yeah, absolutely on the cost and margins, that's probably even a bigger piece of the puzzle.
Do they get surprised when you talk to them about what their bill's going to be when it comes to marketing?
Yeah, that's a funny question. I've been full-time freelancing for let's see, just over 4 years. But I've worked with clients for about 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
So my costs have risen quite a bit. Sometimes to the shock of clients who worked with me a couple of years ago. And it's kind of a bummer because I love working with small companies, and I mean, I'm a coffee person. I worked with an independent operator, just one shop. We had 10 employees, kind of thing. So I mean, these are my people. But definitely, there's it's hard. Well, I think part of it is it's hard for people to value the kind of work that I do, because it seems like if you just open up a coffee shop or if you start roasting coffee, everybody drinks coffee. So your market is huge, so it's a little bit hard to feel, the need to be really thoughtful about marketing and your messaging until you feel the squeeze of, of not standing out very well and needing to be more intentional and focused.
What is the value of having good marketing?
Oh, let's see. Okay, big question. I'll try to keep it coffee focused, but
no, you don't have to.
Okay. The value of marketing is people don't know who you are. They don't know what you sell, and if they do know who you are and what you sell, uh, you've got to give them a reason that's different than everybody else. So, some industries, you can create a product that's
Mm-hmm.
pretty new or
Mm-hmm.
different in some way, innovation as a means of differentiation. Um, and you just got to find the right way to communicate that product. Like, my new thing solves a problem in a new way. Customers tend to get it. It's a little bit easier to connect the dots from point A to point B of, I have some problem, or I want some sort of outcome, and I've got to, I've got to find a product. So the marketing is the in between to helping people get to that. And in the coffee industry, we sell the same products, often from the same importers, even. So, the roasting styles tend to be pretty similar. So there's not a huge amount of differentiation or innovation that you can do with this, the standard coffee business model. So, uh, marketing in coffee, um, I think what tends to work best is uh, telling a really compelling story and having really strong values that you do not leave people guessing as to what you stand for, what your mission is, what your story is. Because everybody's gonna like coffee that's similar to yours. If you start to do something that's innovative, others will copy you. And so, but what people can't copy is the relationship that you have with your customers. So, people who are bought in emotionally to your story, to your mission, they, nobody can come in and say the same things that you say and automatically get that relationship that you have with your existing customers. So, the marketing is really all about developing the emotional connection, the relationship that turns people into regulars, and regulars are the bread and butter
Mm.
of selling coffee.
Do you think that our industry assumes, excuse me, that because somebody else is doing really well at coffee, we've got lots of, I've been to San Antonio, one of my previous clients for Elixir Specialty Coffee, Merit. Shout out to the guys from Merit.
Oh
Merit,
yeah, Merit.
Merit was they were our first customer in Texas, and they were a loyal customer till we left the US. And the thing that was great about Merit was that they did find a way to stand out and grow, even in a market that was saturated. And you think, and yet you still drive around and say, there are cities that have no good coffee. And the thing that blows my mind when people say there's no good coffee, are you sure that there's no good coffee? Because I guarantee you the shops are filled with people. So their customers seem to think it's good coffee. And again, I go back to this thing of, I think we have a real branding problem in our industry, not just specifically specialty coffee, in all kinds of levels of our industry. And I think that if businesses took responsibility for understanding their role in messaging what their brand of coffee is, we'd have a much better chance of individual business success. Right?
Oh yeah, I think so. As long as we communicate like we're a commodity, we will be a commodity in the eyes of customers. So it's not just going to change magically. We've got to help make it happen.
Mm. So the term copywriter and marketer, I remember saying to a couple of clients once, we need to get you a copywriter. And they're like, a machine? No, that's a printer or a photocopier. And so, what specifically does a copywriter do?
Yeah, so that's funny. You mentioned like a copier. So typically people, when I say I'm a copywriter and they've never heard of it, they'll say, so like legal stuff, like you do copyrights for like slogans and like logos and stuff. No, so copywriting in the marketing sense is written sales essentially. So there's really two kinds of copywriting. There's There's brand copywriting, which is kind of meant to help you build sort of an emotional connection with the company. It's kind of the language that goes on to product packaging, on the homepage of your website.
Mm.
It's trying to, it has to demonstrate what exactly you stand for and build that connection. There is another kind of copywriting, which, I mean, there's infinite overlap, of course, but
Mm-hmm.
conversion copywriting, which is more, when you send the email and you're having a sale and you really want as many people as possible to buy your coffee, uh, kind of different skill set, but also writing. So, writing for sales, writing for the emotional connection. Another overlap skill is content creation or content writing. So, writing articles, blogs, social media posts, things like that. Those are often, sort of skills on the side that
Mm-hmm.
copywriters have. So, it's all related. But, essentially, if you want to communicate really well, really thoughtfully in a written way, you hire a copywriter. Or if you want to do it over video, you hire a copywriter to write the script, and then you read the
Do
script.
people do that?
Hire people to write scripts.
No, I mean, do people in coffee get copywriters to write scripts and then read it over a video?
Oh,
How?
let's see.
Oh, I
I don't
guess you
think
mean
that's
for
too common.
ads. Okay, great.
For
I'm really,
ads, that's the thing. Yeah, for ads. If you're doing a video ad, yeah, rewrite the script.
that's unfortunate. I mean, for an industry that talks about how authentic it is.
Yeah. Well, you're really personable on camera, but a lot of people struggle to the camera starts or
I
the,
guess you're
just
right.
the microphone, and it's just like it's easy to freeze up.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I just as a side note, if you ever wanted to shoot a music video, you should absolutely use whatever lighting you've got going on right now because you look like it could be kind of some cross between a Bjork video and a Nirvana video right now.
Okay,
With it, you should absolutely consider that.
I sure will. I'm gonna be making some videos soon, so maybe I should wait till, yeah, I've got this weird music video look.
Ah,
Huh.
it's fantastic. Oh dear. Um, I want to talk about the pandemic.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
What was cringeworthy to you when the pandemic over the last year? What was cringeworthy in some of the stuff that you saw coffee brands doing as they were trying to
Hmm.
adapt? We're going to talk about some fun stuff too, but I want to start with the cringeworthy stuff.
Yeah, let's see. It's been a while since I've seen cringeworthy stuff. I think there was like a few weeks, maybe a couple months where it was just like what is appropriate to say. I don't know. I saw some weird stuff. I'm struggling to recall specifics, but things that just seemed insensitive, or I don't know. It was rough on Twitter to see people posting.
Did you go there? That shit is a cesspool. I stay away from Twitter. I just feel like that's where you go to have arguments, right?
Yeah, there's that side of Twitter is very loud, and there's almost no way you can avoid it. But there's a lot beyond that as well. So
Okay.
there's a great community on Twitter. So, but the arguments, yeah, you can engage if you want, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's good to meet somebody who doesn't go to Twitter for the arguments. There's just so much of it. Even in the coffee world, I'm like, nah, I'm not going to touch these. Fuck that.
oh yeah,
Anyway,
definitely.
so the cringeworthy stuff.
Yeah, well, it's things like you'd scroll and you'd see, the news that somebody's parent, caught COVID,
Hmm.
and it's pretty serious. There's just like this like overcast feeling of like,
Mm.
what's going to happen. This is, it's things are going downhill quickly. And then you had coffee companies saying things like, it'll be over before you know it, but for now, let's do this. I don't know. Say things. It's just like,
Totally
it just feels
insensitive.
like it feels too light. It's just like, it's too soon. It's too soon to joke about it. I think that was the main thing. Definitely saw some things that were extremely insensitive, but I can't recall what they were at the moment.
Yeah. And particularly what I found was really interesting to observe was during the riots last year and during real social justice awakening. of a lot of the problems that we have in our industry, some of the messaging that was coming through was really fascinating to observe.
Okay, you got me so curious. I'm curious. You got to expand more on that.
I was hearing people. So I was particularly watching white-owned businesses to see how they would respond to the Black Lives Matter movement, and even going back so far as like the Me Too movement, all of these kinds of things. It's very interesting to observe the way that different brands message during this time. You know, the thing that I always noticed? It was always a fear-based response. Every time you look to see how a brand is going to respond in a difficult situation, if they don't know what to say, they usually either say nothing or they copy what everybody else is saying.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Very rarely you'll see a brave brand turn around and say, we don't know what the appropriate response is, but we're here to learn. And this is what we're going to do to try and do that. There's one company I know that did that. And the cringeworthy part about this is going to be that they're a sponsor of this podcast. But the reason they're a sponsor of this podcast is because they did this. And that was Baratza. Baratza's owned by two white people. And most of the company is filled with white people. And then when the Black Lives Matter movement broke and a lot of it was going down, it was fascinating to observe a lot of the people in the industry that owned these bigger businesses shut their mouths. They said nothing. And I'm like, these people, I know they have marketing people. These are the businesses that have marketing people. Why are the marketing people not telling them that we need to engage? Or why are they like whitewashing this shit? This is a perfect opportunity to build a relationship with the industry or to build a relationship with your customers by finding strength in your vulnerability. Have I got that wrong?
No, you're exactly right. Yeah. I wasn't in a position to make a statement on behalf of any company at that time or to help, consult how to communicate what was going on and, a company's response to that. But I can imagine the fear of somebody whose responsibility it is to enter into a contentious topic and be unsure of what to do. And there's this pressure. I felt it as working in a sole operator, one location independent shop to be perfect. It's like, we could show behind the scenes stuff as long as it looks good. And,
that's an
people
interesting
still
statement. We can show behind the scenes stuff as long as it looks good. Isn't that everything that's broken about our industry? In one statement right there.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
We can show everything that's behind the scenes as long as it looks good. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't you dare put the grease trap in an Instagram picture.
No.
It doesn't even look gross, but just the idea of it, so, I could feel that the pressure that I felt from the owner of the shop as I was managing the Instagram to, oh, you know what? I actually posted once, briefly after Trump was elected, posted a very non-political, come together. Coffee is meant to heal divides, always has, and we can continue to use it that way type of post. And even that was too contentious. Did not mention any politics whatsoever. Just, it's purely a let's get together and a cup of coffee over across the table is going to be better than any, social media conversation you're having. So that was kind of the sentiment. Yeah, the owner wanted to take it down. It was too much. So there's a lot of pressure, you know, to not stick your head out.
We got to talk about this because from what I'm seeing about the way that culture is changing and the way that consumer behavior is changing, people want you to have an opinion as a business owner now.
Mm-hmm.
Identity politics is a thing. Tribalism is a thing. People want to know what you stand for and what you don't stand for so that they can figure out more than ever if they want to support your business or not. First and foremost, they want to know that you have what they want to buy at a price they can afford. But the moment, I think we're going to get to a moment in time where you being passive about your ideologies is going to work against you. Do you agree?
I think so. I definitely think so. And if the moat that you've built around your business is that you are in the most convenient location, or you have, you know, low prices or something like that, that's just not a very strong moat. People are going to move over to wherever they feel is a better match of their values, and
Mm-hmm.
you know that has a community of people who align with them, and how they want to see the world work. So if you're passive or if you're unclear, um, you're at a disadvantage because other people are going to be more clear than you, and they're going to attract all the people who like your shop or like your roastery, but they don't love it. So those people are easily turned away by, they're going to see something else that's going to be a better fit for them. So they're going to move over.
And because all coffee's coffee, in air quotes, and because taste is subjective, this new kind of era of identity politics seems to be something that's drawing. I wish it wasn't, but it is. And this idea of tribalism is drawing people to support some businesses more than others. And you definitely saw that during the Trump era. You even see it now about Trump. If you're a business that advocates for certain forms of white supremacy, if you advocate for, the vaccine is going to kill everyone and it's a, thing of the new world order, and those are virtue signaling opportunities that draw business, right?
Yeah. Oh
It's
yeah. I mean,
dirty
even if
marketing.
it's dirty, yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, it works. It works whether you have an honorable perspective on the world or if you don't. So, because if you have a point of view that is not so respectable, unfortunately, there are quite a few people who are probably going to agree with you. You'll likely be able to find some customers. I think it's probably going to be less than the companies who take a more honorable position.
Unless you're in
So
Texas.
and yeah, yeah, I'm in Austin. I don't know if you knew that. So yeah.
Oh, congratulations, you and the rest of the US.
Yeah.
It seems like everybody. I remember when I was leaving California earlier this year, somebody said, "Where are you going, Austin?" I'm like, "No, everybody's going to Austin." Well,
Yeah,
it must be crazy being in
I
Austin
feel
right
like
now.
I feel like I jumped on the bandwagon, but I only moved from an hour and a half down the road, so it's like, yeah, I feel like I'm being lumped in with everyone else, but it's like,
Poor you, bro. Everyone's like, "Are you a Joe Rogan fan? Is that why you moved?"
oh gosh. Oh
Oh,
man.
you fit the bill. I am a Joe Rogan fan, so um, so I'm going to throw a scenario at you, and I would love to hear how you, as a marketer, would have handled this, because this happened with a friend who contacted me after so he's a white guy. He used to be a client of mine, and this is a guy who's got a lot of integrity, but He's not a showy kind of guy. The Black Lives Matter movement happened, and his staff are all white. It's a cafe. And it's not that he only hires white people. It's that he lives in his cafe, and where he lives in the same neighborhood just happens to be a highly white populated surfer city. And he contacted me and said, we're copying a lot of shit from people because we're not talking about the Black Lives Matter movement. We're not talking about what our position is. We're not telling people how we're combating white supremacy, etc., etc. He said, but Lee, we decided to approach it in a different way. We decided to go out into the community, donate money to these organizations, and attend a lot of the education things that they were doing. But I don't want to talk about that publicly because it's nobody's business. So as a marketer, how would you handle that situation?
Oh, it's hard. You say as a marketer, but it feels disingenuous to use things like the Black Lives Matter movement for marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I feel a tension of
How would you
using
solve that
something.
problem then? Right? So as a business, he's getting all this attention. And the interesting thing was who he was getting the attention from. It wasn't from his customers. He was getting the attention from baristas in the community, in neighboring cities, not even in his local city. And they were saying, what are you doing to dismantle white supremacy? So you as a person who, for the sake of argument's sake, you are advising this client of yours. How does he handle this situation? Because it's about a lot more than this movement, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, with something as contentious as this, I'd probably want to go a lot deeper with the person specifically, but I'd ask questions like, on like a sort of discovery call, I'd ask questions like, why do you want this to be private? What kind of values do you want to be private versus do you want to be public? There's probably some sort of careful thinking that would be helpful to have, conversations together. I'm not sure exactly why you would want to keep some things private.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
It goes back to fear-based reactions, right? If I say the wrong
yeah.
thing, I'm fucked. If I say anything because I'm a white guy, I'm fucked.
Yeah. And I understand not wanting to say something just because,
Right.
just because there's an expectation and that alone, that would be disingenuous as well. So, I it's challenging because so many of us have never had to think about this before, or we needed to, but there was no pressure to,
Mm-hmm.
or we weren't aware that it would be beneficial to society to be
Mm-hmm.
more open and upfront with the challenges that we face. So, um, I don't know. I think it's helpful to be more open about the kinds of things you do and don't stand for. I've said this a few times already that more transparency is better typically, unless you have something that you're trying to hide. And, it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing that you're trying to hide, but yeah, I'd say pushing forward with transparency is probably smarter, in terms of how you're perceived, which, like we're getting back on perception and
Yep.
it doesn't need to all be about perception. It needs to be authentic. So you've stumped me a little bit here. So I'm not quite
And
sure
that's
exactly.
fine. I mean, I'm not trying to stump you. We're just talking, right? And this is something that a lot of people have struggled with over the last 12 months with mounting pressure on there's a pandemic and I don't know how to run my business during a pandemic. Now there's race riots and I don't know how to run my business during a pandemic that has race riots. Now the Capitol building has been stormed and there could be a civil war. So I don't know how to run my business in a pandemic where we've got social upheaval and I don't know what's happening with my government. And I don't hear anybody having an open discussion about this. And so that's why I want to have an open discussion about this, because people are scared to say the wrong thing. And that's not something that I'm known for. No one would say Lee Safar is the person who doesn't talk about the shit that's difficult to talk about. I am the person that does that. But I hear again and again and again from people, especially at this point of everything, I'm exhausted. I fucking had enough. I don't want to do this anymore. Leave me alone. And where I see that leads is even worse than where we were before all of this started. We're no longer not just talking about it, we no longer give any fucks about it. Because we're scared of getting into trouble about having a conversation that's difficult. And because I think that we're stuck between our ignorance and our desire to do better. But when people are trying to do better, as they come out of their ignorance, they're getting capped at the knees.
Yeah, there's resistance to trying and failing. So there's no better way to learn than by failing. But if we have a culture where failing, even after an honest attempt, is very harmful, or there are some strong reactions to people who make honest attempts to do the right thing and don't do it so well, or maybe there's some misguidance or they use the wrong language. That I think some of those reactions are too strong. Yeah, I mean, we're figuring out what this needs to look like as a civilization, as a greater culture of when should a business be opinionated, and is there room to make mistakes? Is there room to be 80% of the way to a good statement or a good apology or something? Oh, it's hard. It's hard to see. It's hard to see things that feel like genuine attempts to do the right thing and to communicate wisely that hit so much resistance. Because I know what it's like to try to write something and be really thoughtful, and it's still not come across the right way to every single person who reads it. So yeah, it's I think we're just going to be in this tug of war of how do we communicate thoughtfully and mindfully, and when do we shut our mouths because we don't know what we're talking about. So there's a balance somewhere, there's equilibrium somewhere that we keep passing by quite a bit, and I think it's all kind of part of the process, but it's hard in the meantime and it's stressful.
Yeah, because now you can get completely cancelled if you attempt and you fuck it up.
Yeah,
which
no
isn't
room for
helpful,
error.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What happens then? Because I think we're in a dangerous cycle where we're not listening to each other, we're just shouting at each other. We're looking for opportunity. There's a group of people who are looking for opportunities to cancel out people because of a variety of reasons that haven't been considered to their full extent. It's a short-term strategy for a problem that requires a long-term solution. So how do we help our industry be more considered in the idea of we need to start listening to each other. How do we do that?
Yeah, you've got me. Every industry is made up of individuals.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's got to be something that people individually commit to doing. So, there should always be social pressure to, do the right thing,
Mm-hmm.
to have more honor and integrity and authenticity. But we need to stop letting Twitter and other social media platforms dominate those conversations. So we need to have more cups of coffee with people. That's what we need. We need to spend more time in front of people. And, the 20 minutes it takes to drink a cup of coffee is more than enough time to have a human conversation about some of these things. We can resolve a lot of issues if we get off social media, talk over a cup of coffee.
We talked about what were some of the cringeworthy things that you saw. What were some of the great examples of ways that companies use those opportunities to build better relationships?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first things that stuck out that were really obvious were companies that were ultra clear about the types of cleaning and extra procedures they had in place to keep customers safe.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a non-negotiable from the very start. It did still take a while for some companies to pick up on that, but things like Instagram stories of saying, here's how you order now. You can order online. You can call in. Here's where you go to pick up at the window, things like that. So just being clear and upfront about caring for their customers and wanting their customers just to continue to be able to have good experiences was kind of the starting point. And I still think that those kinds of things are important to have. We're over a year into this, but um, you know we're not out of the woods. So you should still be prioritizing clear and open communication about how you're keeping your people safe. Beyond that, I saw a whole bunch of really heartfelt thank yous and community oriented social media posts, quite a few articles, podcasts. People were, maybe around May or June, there were a lot of shops that were able to stay open who made it, past some of the most intense lockdowns, at least here in the United States. A lot of the most intense restrictions were lifted in May in different parts of the country. Way too early, but there did come a point where a lot of the companies, they could have people in again, even for takeout only, but they could have people in their doors, and there was kind of like a sigh of relief. And there were a lot of really great letters from the owner type. It wasn't like a really polished, thank you for supporting our coffee shop. It was really, really personal, being open about the challenges that they had, trying to keep people on staff, um, not being sure if they were going to make it, but the community came through. So those kinds of emotionally oriented, honest, those posts shine through really, 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 really well. So, and it shouldn't have only been, because of a pandemic. We should kind of be, we should be bringing our people together more often than only when we're on the brink of destruction. But that was great to see. And those posts, I mean, the likes and the comments for those were, off the charts types of engagement. So people wanted to be, people missed their local shops, they missed their baristas. They still, they wanted to know they were doing okay. That the building that emotional connection is just priceless. That's how you keep a healthy business. So those were really, really great to see. Um, there were a lot of creative marketing things that were appropriate, but still, kind of framed the pandemic appropriately. So, things like selling bulk coffee, 5-pound bags versus 12-ounce. So people are getting out less. Even with restrictions going down, people You don't make 5 errands. You just make one and order the rest online, kind of thing. So there's a lot of people still ordering 5-pound bags of coffee, especially when there were supply chain issues. It was taking weeks to get coffee shipped. So, um, I think that people adapted, and for the most part, the messaging was not too cringy after a couple of months. But it was really those emotional posts that made me and tons of other people just feel a strong sense of connection. That despite all the chaos, despite everything, my favorite baristas, the people that I get to know, that I get to see often, like they're still there. They're still doing the best they can, and they still feel a connection with me too. So yeah, I'm always encouraging people to be more emotional, because we kind of have a cold industry where it's very
No,
polished.
come on now.
Okay,
I,
it's a frozen wasteland.
absolutely, really, I mean, that's what happens when it's all the same, same. And people are scared to be authentic. People are scared to be real. People are scared to be vulnerable because they're worried that they might get found out.
Yep,
People might figure out that they don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
that's exactly right. Oh yeah. Yeah, we talked about Black Lives Matter, but there's also even longer. There's been a pressure to be, especially in specialty coffee, to be
Mm.
the most skilled, the most educated. If you start to let your guard down, you start to be honest about not knowing. How roasting works, or different, the mechanics of extraction and the espresso machine. If you start to let your guard down, people will know that you're not the expert that you ought to be if you're being paid minimum wage in a coffee shop. So yeah,
And
definitely felt that pressure a lot.
bro, it has been like that for the whole 20 years I've been in specialty coffee. We were pretending back then, and they're pretending now. And if we just cop to the fact that, hey, listen, coffee's subjective. You like what you like. I like what I like. And I'm going to get off this bandwagon where I profess to know all this stuff about coffee. And how about we just say, I'm in a constant state of learning. And I'm going to back that up by doing the learning. That way you're not worried about what people find out about you and don't find out about you. Be okay with asking people a question. The one thing, and I fell into the trap too when I was early in my career. Somebody would talk about the difference between using different basket sizes. And you'd hear somebody, I have a science degree, right? So I would hear these explanations and I'd be like, this doesn't make any sense. These things that these people are talking about don't make any sense. But if I tell them that it doesn't make any sense, it's going to show them that I don't know why we use different basket sizes. What I should have done is go and figure out why we use different basket sizes, so that when I did ask the questions of other people to find out if they knew what they were talking about, I at least understood what I was talking about, which would then remove the need to ask anyone anyway. But we're in this constant state of, oh shit, somebody's going to figure out that I don't know what I'm talking about. It's a dysfunctional way of operating.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the stakes are always high for some reason. Yeah, I can remember being managing the coffee shop and feeling like if I lost the latte art competition, I was a bad manager. Like somehow winning that would be a reflection of my ability to manage people in the coffee shop.
And now you look at it as a grown man who's married and building a family and doing all that kind of stuff, and you're like, that used to be important to me.
Yep.
Look, we here in Sydney have decided that we want to approach some of these big issues. And so we've created what's called the Sydney Coffee Town Hall. And because this is the industry that raised me. And I want to be I don't like what I see in the industry worldwide. We can do better. And so what we're doing is we're bringing the coffee industry together. And the Sydney Coffee Town Hall is run by the industry. It's not like it's a Mapper Forward initiative or anything. No, I don't turn up as the owner of Mapper Forward. I turn up as a member of the Sydney coffee industry. And we have our second town hall tomorrow. And what we do is we kind of put it out there and say, this is the question we're going to talk about at this town hall. And they're always going to be difficult questions to approach. So the first one is, should we be charging more for a cup of coffee in Sydney? And man, did we get some great discussion over the 2 hours. You really started to get an understanding of the fact that people don't know how much it costs to make a cup of coffee. You help people embrace the fact that they don't know that information and they should know it. But you also, as a room, and we had about 45 people come to the first one, and it was bucketing raining, so we're expecting a lot more this time. But what we're starting to get is a real understanding that people are just scared. They're scared of making a mistake that ends up leading to a 3% margin going down to -1%. And so our industry lives on the razor's edge. For those who even know that that's how slim their margins are, most people don't understand that they're operating zombie businesses.
Zombie businesses, yep.
Are you familiar with that term?
No, I'm not. I think this might be the first I've heard it.
Yeah, so as zombie business is a legit financial term.
Oh, okay.
And it comes from the idea of the Walking Dead. You know, a business that's operating at a perpetual loss, and it survives based on its revenue, not realizing that it's actually constantly running at a loss.
Yep.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes a lot of sense, yeah.
And when I heard the term for the first time, I'm like, oh, that's our industry. That's our industry. It's filled with a ton of people who have no idea how much money they're making or not making. They don't know what it costs them to produce a cup of coffee, whatever we're terming that coffee to be. They don't understand the difference between a COGS analysis. They don't understand what gross profit is compared to net profit. This is all the stuff we teach in all our coaching at Mapper Forward. We need you as a business owner before you open the business to understand all of this stuff to fulfill our tagline, which is conspiring to each other's success. If you understand this stuff, you can conspire not only to your own success, but to the success of every stakeholder that engages in your business, because you're not fucking anybody over, including yourself. So if we can empower you with understanding how the cog turns, you can be an active participant in making sure that your part in the cogs turning is well greased and functioning well. You're not letting the industry down. You're not letting your team down. You're not letting your customers down or the supply chain. But unfortunately, not many people understand these concepts in our industry.
They go to Facebook and they ask, what's a normal price?
Yeah.
You know, it's not based on the numbers.
You know, when the most cringeworthy things I see is that question that you mentioned on Facebook. There's a roasters group that I'm sure I've seen your name in. And every time somebody posts the question, how much should I be charging for my bag of coffee? I'm like, you got to answer a question with a question here. How much does it cost you to produce a bag of coffee? And that's the wrong answer. People don't want to hear you say that, because that means that they have to go do some work for a concept that they don't understand. Yep,
spreadsheets, yay.
Well, tomorrow at the town hall, the question is, how much does it cost to produce a cup of coffee? Because we believe that our industry will work better if we are empowered as a community to understand these concepts. So Noah Adra is going to be the person who's facilitating the conversation, and these town halls are discussions. They're not education sessions, they're discussions. And he's put together just a simple graphic that shows how much it costs to produce a cup of coffee. And he called me and he said to me, I don't think people are prepared for what we're about to show them.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at it in Sydney, an 8-ounce latte, if you're selling it at $3.50, take a stab at how much the net profit is on that in cents.
Oh, let's see. I guess 15 cents.
Oh, on the money, you got it. 15 cents.
Oh, right.
15 cents.
That's pretty wild.
Now imagine how many coffees you have to sell if somebody gives away one coffee for free.
Oof. No, I
We
don't
don't
even
think
think about
about it
that.
that way, right?
Man, all those espresso shots down the drain. Ouch.
So
That hurts.
this is when this is my kind of the legacy that I want to leave for the industry is this kind of thing. Having us all be okay with thinking about these fundamental business questions. Like, it's not okay for you as a barista to go to your friend's shop who is a barista at another shop and expect a free coffee. Because you are then absolutely limiting your friend's chances at getting a pay rise. The business can't afford it.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody pays it, and somebody pays the cost of that in sustainability. And it's the producer pays it, the barista pays it, the owner pays it probably. Yeah, everybody pays for it.
So, I wish as an industry we would stop being so scared of the reality of the situation. Because I think we're in trouble.
Yeah, we're in trouble.
A crazy person?
No, you're in trouble. So I've been working on a project with a company who's doing research on not just the cost of production at origin for how much it costs to grow coffee, but what would it cost to pay every person who works there a living wage that's respective of their their percent of time spent working in coffee versus other income sources.
Based on local pay rates or based on US pay rates?
Based on local pay rates and based on local living income benchmarks. So what does it cost to have respectable housing? What does it cost to meet minimal nutrition needs? What does it cost to have minimal health care and education, things like that? So it's kind of a process that has to there's no one size fits all kind of thing. So it's a hard process to go through. But this research will be coming out in the next few weeks. But I mean, the what would qualify as a living income benchmark for green coffee is quite a bit higher than what people say it is, or what people believe that it is, because our pricing mechanisms for coffee are pretty imbalanced, and they're based on financial markets, which aren't really anchored to the reality of growing coffee. So I mean, it's fascinating. So when you empower the farmers to do their own cost analysis, to look at the financials themselves. I mean, they often experience the same kind of transformation where they have greater business acumen. They can have more negotiating power and understanding of what they need, to make ends meet in a sustainable way. But every coffee company says they have sustainable coffee, but we're even companies that are doing well, uh, you know, we're not really even close to sustainability. So as an industry, so and yeah, you've got to know your costs. You got to know the numbers, or else we're just guessing at what's sustainable, and we have no clue. And it turns out that's you know demonstrable based on the numbers. So people who honestly believe they're paying the right price for coffee and charging the right price out of the roaster. Uh, yeah, this client I'm working with has had a wake up call, and we're hoping there are some more wake up calls. But yeah, we've got a lot of wake up calls we haven't around true costs
Absolutely.
and what we need to charge and pay.
Can you reveal how many magnitudes greater coffee should be priced at? Roasted coffee or green coffee, sorry.
Oh, I think since the research is not published, I'm
Sure.
limited on what I
Will
can
you send
say.
it to me once it's published and I'll put it out there?
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be really interesting. It's going to be yeah, it's everyone at coffee should get their hands on it. There are a few things that are similar that exist right now. So one is the Coffee Barometer, which I think you've maybe seen. I thought I saw you share something about that. Does that sound familiar?
No.
Okay, never mind. There must be another Lisa Farr out there. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I'm literally the only Lisa Farr in the world. Literally.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
wow, that's pretty wild. Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, you achieved true uniqueness.
Well, my surname is very unique and it's only to one part of the world. Uh, its origins is from Syria. And Lee is not a Syrian name. So you only have the surname
Huh.
Safar if you're from Syria.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
That's interesting. Okay, fun fact. My middle name is also Lee.
it,
Lee.
well, the hilarious part about it is Lee is the most common name in the world.
Wow.
Yeah. Which, so I have the most common name in the world, but because of my surname, I am literally the only Lee Safar in the world. Literally.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's very bizarre.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. That should go on
Thanks.
a resume.
I have a couple of things on the resume, which I'm pretty proud about. So that's another one to be proud about. So another fellow Lee. Welcome to the family. It's a big
Thanks.
family.
Yeah.
So the coffee barometer.
Yeah. So it's kind of I believe it's an annual study that looks at coffee average green prices paid for green coffee
Mm-hmm.
versus cost of production, and it's kind of what you'd expect. Well, it's not exactly what you'd expect, which is that even our best guesses at what a sustainable price would be, or a fair price, are still too low. So that's also reflected in research done by Caravella Coffee. They have some good studies on this with some of their partners in Latin America. So yeah, if you want more information, yeah, Coffee Barometer, that's a good one, and then the Caravella Coffee
Yeah.
Study, and then this incoming research on uh, living income benchmark and for coffee.
My big problem with all of this stuff is, as someone who is trained in science, your information is only as good as the quality of the data. And coffee producers, unfortunately, are equally as ignorant to cafe owners when it comes to understanding how to read or how to put together their profit and loss
Mm-hmm.
statement. And I know that firsthand from speaking to coffee producers. And so to try and understand what it costs to produce a cup of coffee, a pound of green coffee, requires a producer to know what all the inputs are costing them, as well as what it's costing them to produce the coffee, as well as what it's costing them to run their farm. And that's different in every single origin.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, that's why any sort of global differential or price premium that's standard across the globe is an honest attempt to solve some problems. But I mean, it's like why you can't give you can't give advice, the same advice that you would give to your clients in Australia as you'd give to
Right.
clients in the US versus, you know, in Asia somewhere. So, it's all has to be contextual because our economies, our costs are very different.
The added challenge to that is that we have an industry that likes bundling things up into cute little packages and saying, well, this is my coffee sustainable and this is how much it costs to produce a cup of coffee. And the moment you start talking about things like, oh, okay, so help me understand how that is in relation to the C market and what differentials are working in play there, you break people's brains when you say things like that, right? Because they're like,
Yeah.
fuck, I have no idea what she's talking about. Correct. I get that. That's my point. We need to understand more about how we engage in a supply chain. It really affects people's lives. But because we're paying people minimum wage, why the fuck do they want to learn about any of this stuff?
Yep.
None of it seems sustainable, to use one of our industry words. It just doesn't. To me, the system we operate in has to break.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think we should just stop using the word sustainable or fair or ethical because we're kind of just lying to ourselves and lying to everybody, pretending like we know what's going on and like we
Okay,
know, we're familiar with the solution.
you're a marketing guy. I want to remind you of that. So, what are you using instead of those words?
So, here's the thing. I think it's on a case by case basis.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the receipts to back up that you are working towards sustainability, that you have specific targets that you want to reach, whether that's the price you pay for coffee, whether that's, you're tracking your CO2 emissions out of your roasting facility or your coffee shop, things like that. If you can draw a line and say, here's where we've been, but here's where we're going, you can make claims with integrity about sustainability, about reaching for carbon neutrality or more fair pricing. You can use that language, but you've got to have those receipts. 9 out of 10 companies that use that language do not have receipts. They have no clue what their importer is paying. They have no clue. So there's, we're at a point where the language is so divorced from the reality that you know it's pretty much just mainly meaningless.
And we
And
have a.
nobody wants.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, nobody wants to say we sell coffee that's not sustainable. So yeah, we have to find some alternatives. We
Right.
have to find some ways to indicate that there's a problem, but we want
Yep.
to find it out. But it's just a lip service if we're not genuinely pursuing better data, uh, you know, uh, more information about what fair and sustainability really is, and if we're not making moves with the transparency to be able to demonstrate what those moves are. So
And
yeah,
the public wants to hear you say those words so that they can feel warm and fuzzy about spending 99 cents on a cup of Joe.
yeah, yeah. So
It's perpetually fucked. Like it's so broken, right?
yeah, it's like we're adding, we keep adding weights to the side of a scale, and it's just, it's clearly not right. And the balance is off, but we're using words, pretending like it's even though it's clearly not. So we have to take weights off the scale. We have to make some sort of change, and it's pretty scary to do that, and it's costly to do that, and it's especially costly if you don't even know what your own costs are. So it's hard for people to genuinely pursue that if they don't, if they're not finally in tune with their own business and with their own financials.
Which is a good chunk of our industry. And I know
Yep.
people might be listening to this thinking, God, she's so doom and gloom. And I swear it's not about doom and gloom. None of this is about doom and gloom. It's about reality. It's about we can't fix something that we're not prepared to look at. We
Exactly.
can't fix white supremacy if you're not prepared to look at it. You can't fix a broken system if you're not prepared to look at it. We can't fix coffee prices. We can't make our businesses better. We can't strengthen the sustainability of the business model. And by that, what I mean is having a business that stands the test of time. We can't fix that model if we're not prepared to acknowledge that we have some serious challenges ahead. You can cover it up with marketing words as much as you want for as long as you want, but all we're creating is a new wave of businesses who write out the first 3 years running at a loss and then say the same thing that most people say to me. If I'm operating a business at 3% net profit, why the fuck am I doing this?
Yep.
2020 and 2021, it seems to be the years where, for the generations that we've been kicking the can down the road, which in my opinion has been accelerated because of marketing. It's been made okay because of marketing. We've been kicking the can down the road on many, many societal and business topics, and particularly in our industry, green coffee purchasing is one of them. And I feel like 2020 and 2021 are when the end of the road that we've been kicking that can down is quickly coming to an end. And we're being held to account for things that we thought we didn't have to focus on. And en masse, our industry is going to have to start paying attention to the buzzwords that it's using. If people have to pivot, what's your advice on that? If people have to start being, if their customers and other people are starting to hold them to account, what do they do?
Well, you got to start putting forth an effort. You can't, there's just no way to skirt past it anymore and, hope that nobody notices. Awareness is growing. There's better research that comes out more and more. So, I think that many people in our industry are aware of the problems, and customers are becoming aware slowly but surely that, the way our industry operates is, we're some people are paying far more than their share, and in terms of the burden of the imbalance, and coffee producers, have drawn the short stick for hundreds of years because of the standard systems. Coffee business owners have just barely skirted by. So I think that it's like, this is interesting. So in the U.S., I'm sure this is the case in many places. There is a shortage of hospitality workers. Are y'all seeing that in Australia?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And there's people who, there's a bunch of reasons why. Some people have stretched government money, and they're doing, they're happy to not be put at risk by people who are not very respectful, and who are a little too self-absorbed to care for their neighbor. There are some people who just, they're tired of the abuse of different things, and
they're recognizing their own value, their inherent value.
Yes.
And being undervalued.
Yes. And so, and in the US, our unemployment has gone down significantly, but the hospitality supply of workers has not gone back up. So people are pursuing greener pastures. So, we're at a point where, the reckoning is kind of here. We've got to figure out, have we not been paying people enough? And I saw conversations on Facebook the other day of people saying the living income is $40,000 in our city. Could you afford to pay your baristas that? And they're it's a hypothetical question, but they're saying no. Of course you can't afford to pay a living income for your baristas. And, it's kind of like, well, the economics here are all wrong then. Like, are you paying a living income for yourself? Oftentimes they're not.
No.
But, if you're not paying your people well, of course there's going to be a shortage. So of people who are eager to work for you. So, the imbalance is biting us in the butt right now. It's happening. Yeah. So we've got to make it work somehow.
Do we?
Well, in order to, we can always try to keep kicking the bucket, kicking the can down the road and let somebody else take care of it. But, I think that they're, with the shortage, it's a real market force that puts pressure on people. There were some people saying they had to close their front of house. They're only doing delivery and pickup, takeout, things like that. They're not serving
Mm-hmm.
customers dine in anymore. So, I'm sure it depends on what part of the world you're in and, how dire it is. But I think some people are have to face it because they've got McDonald's down the street paying $20 an hour because they can afford to, and their prices are rising with are meeting the supply and demand, whereas a coffee shop can't. They just don't have any room. So yeah, they've got to figure something out.
But do they? And that's my point. Like, if we don't fix this, if we just try and figure something out, like another band aid fix, we could be witnessing the reckoning that is the demise of the small business in the coffee industry. It may be the shrinkage that we need, and I know that that's very Thanos of me, but is this the opportunity for zombie businesses to go away? Or is this just a way that we as an industry end up adapting to a new model that requires no employees?
I'm not an expert on this, but if I imagine
Mm-hmm.
50 years down the road,
Mm-hmm.
and we figured out all of our economics problems, we've got all the prices are right. They're
Mm-hmm.
contextually appropriate. So, in Australia, you have one price, and California, you have one price, in Tennessee, you've got another price. In Kenya, in Nairobi, you've got another price. Everything is balanced. We've met equilibrium. We've got it all figured out. I imagine there are far fewer coffee companies, there are far fewer roasters, there are far fewer shops. People are paying quite a bit more per cup or per
Mm-hmm.
bag, and people are savoring those experiences a little more dearly. So, I think that the way we have to go, and like I said, I'm not an expert here, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm just working off of poorly patched together webinars and Rico sessions and things like that. But
We're
I
just
imagine that.
talking, bro.
Yeah.
We're not solving the world's problems. We're just two people who have been in the industry and have witnessed a bunch of stuff. We're just trying to talk about what the options are for our industry.
I think we have to charge more. I think we have to pay more, and we have to give customers a reason to follow us along. I think there's no option. I think we have to do it, and it's the labor shortage is only one thing, but there's always been you know it's a labor shortage in the U.S. In Guatemala, it's an education shortage. It's a nutrition shortage. So,
Mm-hmm.
we're paying the cost somewhere. So, and we're feeling it now in our own pockets and in our own ability to run
Yeah.
our businesses. So it makes it more real, and it should have been more real all along. But you know, so yeah, we've got to start. Yeah, we've got to have better messaging so that customers will follow us along, because
Mm.
you can't be the only company who doubles their prices. Most of your customers are going to go somewhere else because unless they have a strong emotional connection, unless they are well educated about why you're making certain choices and why it matches your values and why it should ideally match theirs too. They're not going to feel that connection. They're going to go to somewhere else.
And dare I say, our industry is not done being stress tested yet. I think that 2020 and 2021 so far have only just started stress testing the industry. and our business models and our supply chain and all of that kind of stuff. And I think that the weight of having been stress tested is going to create long-term impact on the way our industry evolves and what it's going to look like. Because hopefully people are waking up to the fact that it doesn't really make sense to open a cafe anymore. Equally, it doesn't make sense to produce coffee anymore. If you're a smallholder farmer, it hasn't made sense for quite some time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It doesn't make sense to open a cafe anymore unless you have zero competition. You know, that 15 cents net profit on a $3.50 latte doesn't even take into account fit out costs. And your average cafe here in Australia, in Sydney, is spending anywhere between $500,000 to $1 million in fit out.
Wow. Okay, I'm curious about that. Are standards very high for, if a new cafe is going to open? Is the standard for, how well put together the interior is, and is that? It sounds like the
Yes.
standards are high. Okay.
We have a very well developed coffee drinking culture. So people may buy 3 to 5 coffees a day. And it's an espresso-based culture. So the challenge with that comes if I've got a loyalty card program and I'm rewarding every customer a free version of the beverage that they buy every 10th coffee. But I'm making 15 cents on each of those 10 coffees. Essentially, that customer's loyalty is just loyalty. I'm not really actually profiting from that customer by giving them one coffee. I'm actually losing every time I give them a coffee free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow.
Makes sense?
Yeah. I mean, when you think about the numbers, just like anything, loyalty program should serve you, and
the customer.
it should, yeah. And if it's not serving either one of you, something's wrong. But yeah, I think that's often the case where the numbers just don't add up.
And we don't think about it this way because we're so consumed with, well, everybody else seems to have it figured out. So if I do it the same way that everybody else is doing it, I'm going to be profitable, right? Because everybody else has got loyalty programs, I have to have a loyalty program. Because everybody else is selling their 8-ounce latte at $3.50, I'm going to sell my 8-ounce latte at $3.50. But the missing part of that equation is none of those other people that are doing this understand that every coffee they give away is digging them into a deeper hole. You're following them down that hole when you start doing the same thing that they're doing.
Yep.
Now we have a broken local industry.
It's hard to dig yourself out because you can't just be the only one to volunteer to raise prices or to do something different, right, and stand out in a negative way from the perspective of the consumer.
And the pandemic has created a bigger problem because now what you have is people who are coming from the corporate world saying, I've got some redundancy money or some, I've been let go from my job. I was working at this company for the last 10 years. They've given me $100,000. I can't go on a holiday. And I don't want to go back to the corporate world and I can't find a job. I love coffee.
Mm-hmm.
How hard can it be to open a cafe? Look at all these cafes in Sydney. They're gorgeous. And right now, the bank is happy to take your money. and money's cheap. So I'm going to go open a cafe. All right, I'm going to go and look at all the cafes in the local area and see what they're doing. They're all making bacon and egg rolls. They're selling their coffee for this much. And they're saying that if you buy a coffee and a bacon and egg roll, I'm going to give it to you for $12. And because everybody cares about the quality of their produce, I'm going to find a farmer that's going to give me the best bacon that I can afford. And I'm going to use organic eggs, and I'm going to use a local baker because I want to support local business. All the buzzwords. And you're basing your pricing on what everybody else is doing. See how the hole that we're all digging gets bigger and deeper?
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
And I swear this is
Yeah.
not me
It
being
just keeps
doom and
going.
gloom. I want a real industry that's conspiring to its future success as much as it's trying to survive right now.
Absolutely. It's like getting out of debt. You can't not look at the debt and pay it down, appropriately over time. Like
Yeah.
you have to, like, we have to pay down some of this debt of, 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 of bad pricing models, economics that don't really help anybody. Yeah. So we have to be realistic about it.
Mm. And this is where I think people, not to shit on your industry, but this is where marketing becomes kind of cutesy, right? Like, let's just use the right
Shit on it all
words.
you want. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to shit on marketing because it can play a really healthy role in rebuilding this. Right? If we stop trying to trick customers and start trying to build healthy businesses, and we encourage business owners to have some real connection, like authentic connection, understand the kind of business that they're participating in, and try to build something that's genuine in our industry rather than, I just want to own a cafe because like I like the idea of cutesy little muffins.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know any of the solutions. I just know that we're in deeper shit than we realize we're in. And anybody who doesn't believe me, I will show you the numbers. And I invite you to try and do a cost breakdown analysis of genuinely how much it costs you. Not gross, not a COGS analysis, not from a cost of goods perspective. Because if you do just a cost of goods breakdown of what it costs to produce a cup of coffee, you're looking at 60% gross profit.
Yep. And people say, I hear people say on podcasts and other industries, the margins on coffee are good. It's when I hear it all the time.
It's so terrifyingly the opposite of that. I know cafe owners who constantly tell me I make 60% profit. I'm like, gross profit. No, the other profit. Oh shit. If you're calling it the other profit, we've got a fucking problem. It's called net profit, and we need to help you understand exactly what this means. We have to talk to you about operating expenses. You've got to understand the difference between fixed and variable expenses. We're going to help you understand how these numbers work. And almost 100% of the time, people have the look of death on their face when the reality of what has been going on in their business over the last few years becomes clear to them.
Yeah, I believe it. We're talking about heavy stuff. So
Yeah.
let me just give an example of, if I was in this position,
Yeah.
and I wanted to make a change. I saw the need. I want to be proactive. I want to be, I'm willing to be a pioneer on some of this stuff. There's some steps that I would take to help customers understand why my business has to change and their behaviors around buying my coffee need to change some as well. I would do my best to try to have solid numbers. So, if the importer did a study on what the green cost needs to be, I try to give the roaster, try to understand what those numbers mean. And, maybe that's a percentage. Maybe it's, we're increasing 15% or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
some sort of number that's somewhat solid that people can wrap their head around, rather than just saying we're paying more. That doesn't really
Mm-hmm.
mean anything. Give it a number so people can anchor it. Look at, I'd look at, if I want to pay, if I want to pay on my staff and myself 15% more, just to pull a number out of my butt. Put that down in numbers. So, we look at the cost and say, costs have to change by this amount. And, maybe the products I'm serving are going to adjust a little bit too. I'd write a really great, really detailed article about it that walks through the whole thing. Maybe not all the details, but kind of, generally saying, here's some precise numbers, and these demonstrate why we have to make a change to make this sustainable for everybody. So, our values are sustainability. Our values are, we want to make coffee something that people can earn a legitimate living in, that, our baristas are not stressed out and burned out, so we can provide better experiences, and, we can be the community center we want to be. Connect all of that to the values, to the mission. And then from there, I would send that article to every magazine, every newspaper in the local area. I'd send it to, I'm here in Texas. I'd send it to all the Austin magazines. I'd send it to Texas publication. And there's an advantage to being among the first to try to do this, because you'll get press. People who identify with those values, there are a lot of people who are willing to pay a little bit extra if it means that it's not blood money. They're giving money to, they're paying a reasonable cost. So there are a lot of
And
people who will
especially
be
now, right?
attracted to that. Oh
People
yeah,
are trying
more
to
than ever.
rally
Yeah.
around people who are trying to do the right thing and who are copying to the fact that, listen, we didn't know we were fucking up. Now that we know, we want to do better. And this is how we've decided to do better. We'd love you to support us so that we can make sure that everybody that is a stakeholder in what we do ends up with more. We're not
Yep.
asking you to cash out us money. We're just asking you to participate in paying a fair price for what we're doing, because we are now going to participate by paying a fair price to the people who make our business possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? As long as you're authentic and you have the receipts to back up the numbers, and you're not just bullshitting that you're going to pay people differently or pay people better, and you just kind of keep all the extra money, if you can
Because
demonstrate.
people will find out.
Yes, yes. And, if you're doing all of that, you can market as much as you want, and you don't have to worry about being inauthentic. You don't have to worry about it being a sham, or, you're pulling the wool over people's eyes, because, if you have the receipts, if you have the authenticity behind it, the marketing just is going to amplify that, and that'll help you. So, marketing got us into a lot of messes. It can help us get back out. It's got to be part of the piece as well.
And I think that that's the kind of marketing that I think if people aspire to, rather than trying to trick people, that's the way we get out of this mess that we're in as an industry. I'm really grateful for you presenting that as a potential real option. That's a real viable option that people can do. However, they have to be prepared to put in the work that's required to earn that moment.
Yep. Yep. You got to take the blindfold off. You got to be real about what's happening, and be willing to do the hard thing, to look forward and, map the journey.
Yep. And you just recently released an article about, I haven't had a chance to read it because I just got the link this morning, but you released an article that listed some coffee consultants in it. And I'm sure that all the coffee consultants on that list are going to be people that will be able to help anyone who's listening to this that needs help understand how to get to a place where the messaging could be what it needs to be, right? I haven't seen the list, so.
Oh yeah, and you know what? I'll say this. You know, people who are coffee consultants work in coffee, they're generally familiar with these problems around profit margins and how,
Hmm.
how close to the edge we are always teetering. And I will say, working with a coffee consultant is far more affordable than working with an outside consultant. So,
Mm.
I strongly suggest working with somebody who is intimate with the industry because, um, I mean, it is not uncommon to find people charging, tens of thousands of dollars to
Hmm.
come in and renovate the business finances, and that's typically not how it is amongst coffee people because we know that's not really realistic. Um, so yeah, I mean, if people want help, there's 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 the right kind of help out there, and it doesn't have to be break the bank kind of expensive.
Yeah.
So you've got some things coming up that are it seem like great opportunities. So it seems like it's I don't know, maybe you could talk about it. I don't know, you know more of what's coming up and what's going on, but it seems like there are some great things coming up that are just seem like no brainers to me in terms of how to get involved and get the right information and you know continue to develop the right skills.
Yeah, and look, we as Map It Forward, we've started the first coffee consultants mastermind group. So we are teaching people how to become coffee consultants, or consultants in the coffee industry is how we like to say it. Because what the fuck is a coffee consultant really anyway? You know?
Yep.
So the participants in the mastermind group are diverse in the parts of the coffee industry that they offer consulting in. But and I'm the coach for the group, and what I'm drawing from is the idea of helping people understand what it is that you need to challenge your clients on and what your role is as a consultant. It's not just to how do I get more sales? That's not what this is about. It's about how do I help my client see the blind spots, because that should be the superpower of a consultant. If you're not able to anticipate the blind spots, what are you doing? And the other thing is, how do you help them be okay in the reality of what's ahead of them? So your job is to manage people's expectations.
Hmm. Oh yeah, it's the secret skill, managing expectations. Yep,
Right.
absolutely.
Which is why I decided to start the mastermind group. I've been very successful as a consultant in the coffee industry, and I'm very proud of that. But I never tell people what they want to hear. I always tell them what they need to hear. And I always warn them up front. This is going to be hard to hear, but we're going to talk about it anyway, and we're going to get to a solution. And I feel that if we had more people in the industry, and there are people out there, but we need more of them that are offering consulting work based on what clients need to hear rather than what they want to hear, we would have healthier businesses starting from the onset.
Hmm. Yep, absolutely.
So I'm keen to see. I'm sure that the list is fantastic, and that people should could look at the list on the article that you've sent out and find any of those consultants to be people who will be able to help them figure out what they're doing and how to get better at building a business that's going to stand the test of time, which is what I call a sustainable business.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah. Maybe just tell people where it is. It's at coffeemarketingschool.com. It's where I've been doing some writing for at the start of the pandemic.
Yeah.
I was like, well, it's kind of chaos. So uh
That's a word for
not a lot of companies can
it.
afford to hire me. But it was like, well, it's all hands on deck. So I'm just gonna start giving away as much as I can
Hmm.
just through the newsletter. So yeah, that's the consultant articles hoping to make it easier for folks to find the right help for whatever challenges they're facing.
Great. And we'll include a link in the show notes. And is that your only website?
No, so yeah, I there's GarrettOden.com, which has always been my freelancer site. That's
Hmm.
where most of my work comes through there. But Coffee Marketing School is a side project uh, newsletter. I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do with it, but it's been really fun. It's been really rewarding. So
Great.
I'm definitely building out what that's going to be. I want it to be more practical resource. I've really enjoyed being able to help a wider group of people,
Mm-hmm.
and not send big invoices out. So it feels great to
Excellent.
just participate on
Yep.
on a grander scale. So yeah, have some fun things going out there.
Awesome. This has been a really great conversation. Thanks, Garrett.
Oh, this has been fantastic. Yeah, it's we need to do this more often.
We've been talking for 2 hours.
You're making me want to start a podcast.
Do it. I actually, once we get off this conversation, I'm going to have a chat to you with what you're doing with the marketing school, because I think I've got some ideas for you. And yeah, let's finish this conversation, then we'll have a chat. And so I'm
Okay.
grateful. I'm grateful for what you're bringing to the table for the industry, because we need more of it. So thanks for the
Well,
way
thank
you're
you.
participating, and I wish you every success with all of it.
Thank you. Thank you. That's so kind of you. And the same to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. The industry needs more Lee Safars. Too bad there's only one.
Too bad there's only one. Oh dear. Peace, love, and peanut butter, everyone. Have an amazing rest of your day.